E.N.D here. Phyrexia all will be one will bring us back poison counters. A poison counter is a particular counter that is placed on players rather than objects. When a player has 10 or more poison counters, that player loses the game. A player with at least one poison counter is considered poisoned. Poison is intended to be a different win condition from life totals. The poison mechanic was introduced in Legends, and the mechanic appeared in sets up until Visions, limited in Future Sight. It finally saw print as a major mechanic in Scars of Mirrodin with Infect. Infect is a keyword ability that was introduced as set in Scars of Mirrodin. A creature with Infect deals damage to creatures in form of -1/-1 counters and players in form of poison counters. If a player has 10 or more poison counters, they will lose the game. But how do you play Infect? Let's build our battlefield and let's put in play Cyst Bearer. 2 and 1 green, it's a 2/3 with Infect. It's a normal creature spell, therefore it will go on the stack. There can be a counter, there can be a response, nothing happens and it will hit the battlefield. First scenario, players. Damage dealt to a player by a source with Infect doesn't cause that player to lose life. Rather, it causes that source controller to give the player that many poison counters. Meaning that when I will attack my opponent, and in my case, my opponent is unable to block Cyst Bearer because they don't have any creature, Cyst Bearer will deal 2 damage to my opponent, but their life will not decrease. Instead of losing 2 life, my opponent will get 2 poison counters. And once a player gets 10 poison counters or more, they will lose the game, even though they still have life. Second scenario, creatures. Damage dealt to a creature by a source with Infect isn't marked on that creature. Rather, it causes that source controller to put that many -1/-1 on that creature. Meaning that when I will attack my opponent and they are able to block Cyst Bearer with a creature, let's say Erza, Prince of the Crook, it's a 2/3. Let's block it. Cyst Bearer will deal 2 damage to Erza, but instead of marking 2 damage, Erza, Lord of the Crook, will get 2 -1/-1 counters. My Cyst Bearer will survive, Erza will survive, but now instead of a 2/3, it's a 0/1 because it has 2 -1/-1 counters. Even if my Cyst Bearer dies, if I have block, let's say with Goldback at 3/3, if I have block with this creature, Cyst Bearer will die, and I would put 2 -1/-1 counters on Goldback, and Goldback will be a 1/1. Some notes: Infect's effect applies to any damage, not just combat damage. The -1/-1 counters remain on the creature indefinitely. They're not removed if the creature regenerates or the turn ends, as much as it remains on the battlefield. Damage from a source with Infect is damage in all respects. If the source with Infect also has lifelink, damage dealt by that source also causes its controller to gain that much life. Damage from a source with Infect can be prevented or redirected. Abilities that trigger on damage being dealt will trigger if a source with Infect deals damage if appropriate. If damage from a source with Infect that would be dealt to a player is prevented, that player doesn't get any poison counters. If damage from a source with Infect that would be dealt to a creature is prevented, that creature doesn't get any -1/-1 counters. Damage from a source with Infect affects planeswalkers normally. Meaning that if I had, let's say, Liliana of the Veil with 3 loyalty counters and my cyst bearer attacked Liliana, Liliana would have 1 loyalty counter at the end of combat. My last note is related to proliferate. If you would proliferate, you can choose a player or players and increase their poison counters. Proliferate and poison counters can be a deadly cocktail for your opponents. So this is how you play Infect, a very strong mechanic. Leave me a comment below, what do you think about this mechanic and what do you think about poison being back in standard? And as always, subscribe buttons here, subscribe for my channel for more and more interesting videos about Magic the Gathering and the collectible world.